Okay, we're back, and we left by talking about the diesel fuel. The people at the county commission, by the way, when the gas tax was passed, this is very odd, I thought, that you have this vote as the last lame duck thing.
Right. Two new county commissioners are coming in. Yeah. That's usually a bad. Usually when it's the last thing on the agenda and it's just kind of slid in. We've had some awful things that happen on the last thing on the agenda. At I guess it's the last meeting of the lame duck county commission or something. I'm not sure. But we got two county commissioners coming in like right away.
We do. And this gas tax passed. Now, as Bill said, and I tend to agree, a stable source of funding for our bus system is pretty important. Just coincidentally, many years ago, over 30 years ago, I used to ride the bus because the bus came right by my house, and the route was such that it dropped me right downtown within a block of my office, and so I used to ride the bus and take my kids on the bus. And the bus fare was $0.25. And I remember when they doubled it to 50 cents, and you know the people who rode the bus didn't have a voice; they just had to pay it. Right. Well, it's now I think $1.75. So yeah, it's gone up 7 times what people were paying. So we had a subsidized form of public transportation for people who couldn't afford it, or for whatever reason, as Bill mentioned, needed to use the bus. The bus is very inefficient because the routes are such that you have to go through a clearing station and get another bus. Yeah. Generally, you don't go from point A to point B, and it takes, sometimes people are on the bus a couple of hours to get where they want to go.
Well, we're just so spread out.
And we are so spread out, yeah.
When gas was cheap, and we had, we went through this explosion of suburbs, and everybody wanted to move out to the suburbs, and we're just so spread out. Public transportation in a place like Pensacola it's hard. It's tough. I'd hate to try to run a bus service to meet all the needs. It's a problem.
It's very difficult.
But I think we ought to do it. I mean, you cannot leave people who need it to rely on taxis. But not if they have to get to work.
Why were all the money guys hanging around the gas tax vote? So we started to look at it, and we came up with some interesting numbers here. The numbers are fairly simple. I mean, the math is fairly simple. They claim a 4-cent per gallon tax will produce $4 million. Well, the math is very simple. That's 100 million gallons of gas. Okay, so we'll write that down. We got 100 million gallons of gas will produce $4 million. Okay, simple enough, right? They don't say where they get this 100 million figure from. So we started digging around to try to figure out, well, where did this number come from? And how much money will this tax actually produce? We could be wrong about these numbers. We got them for 2010. From the Department of Agriculture, and there's a report called Gas and Diesel Fuel Sales in Florida. Pretty straightforward report, and it lists.
I was kind of using the editorial we. He did this. I didn't think of it.
Well, we both got interested in it, and I said, okay, let's try to figure out what the basis for it is. And we're still looking at this, and we're not acting like, oh, well, we got the answer. But here's what the 2010 numbers are. This 2010, we don't have the 2011 numbers, and we couldn't find them. We're trying to get them now. We'll have them maybe next week. But it's 134 million, not 100 million.
They're off by a lot, aren't they?
They're off by over a third, 134 million. Well, at 4 cents, that math is pretty simple. 4 times 13. 13 double is 26. 26 double is 52. That's 5.2 million, okay? It's pretty simple numbers. 5.2 million, we think, based on 2010 numbers, will be derived from this tax. Now, there's another aspect of it. They are not taxing diesel. Yeah. How much diesel fuel was sold? 25 million. Well, simple math, 4 cents, 25 million, that's another $1 million. So, if they tax diesel, and if they go ahead and tax, and the level is 134 million, they'll produce $6.2 million. Now, the diesel guys, they don't want any tax, and there may be
there may be some reasons. If you had a diesel station near the interstate, a lot of the users of diesel, like big trucks, they've got big tanks, and they're going to shop very carefully. They are. And maybe that extra 4 cents is going to cost a lot of business. In fact, a lot of the people in Century said, well, everybody's just going to drive across the border into Alabama. We're going to lose all our business. And that's a fact.
And gas, right now, the gas tax in Alabama is a lot less, and so people are doing that as we speak.
And I talked to one of our employees who lives in Santa Rosa County. And
it's cheaper there, too.
It's cheaper, and every day on my way from my house, I pass a big gas station, so that's where I'm going to get my gas, which is what people do.
So now we have to go
shop.
We have to go back to this. People are going to shop. People are going to look for lower gas prices. So what are these projections? Well, if what they're really saying is this, we anticipate that this 4-cent gas tax is going to screw untold number of businesses that are selling gas so bad that it's going to drop to 100 million from 134, maybe 150. I don't know what the number is. That they've already calculated the terrible economic impact on local businesses. And factored it. And say, wait just a second. Wait. And then first of all, who shuffled these cards and who came up with 4 cents, by the way? Who came up with that? And where is the analysis that could be published in the newspaper, could be available to the taxpayers to explain this very odd last-minute 4 cents a gallon gas tax, even though we both agree it could be a good source of funding for public education. I really think they're counting on getting a lot more money. They're talking about reducing the millage rate by $1 million. It's silly. It's insignificant. But I think they're talking about getting a lot more money than the $4 million.
Well, the politicians always give you one side of the calculation.
They do.
You know, in California, we're going to raise all this money because we're going to raise the tax on the wealthy. But they're not calculating that a lot of the wealthy are going to just move out. They're going to beat feet. And we're going to set an example for the world out here in California by having a carbon tax. Well, every business that can move will move. And they're just going to be a bunch of there's going to be some utilities left, and the public sector, and Hollywood, and some tourism.
And they'll be the only Republicans left in the country.
There aren't any. I mean, not in Sacramento there aren't. There are in Orange County. There are little nests of Republicans, but the Democrats run everything in California.
All right, tell me this.
Which is why it's so screwed up.
Tell me this. The Republicans got thumped. We haven't talked since the election. Why did it happen?
Well, who knows? I mean, all the smart people didn't predict this, and now all the smart people think they know why. I've got some ideas about some things that may have contributed. The policy taken by here's the problem. To get the nomination, you've got to go through the nominating process, and you've got to appear in front of the diehards who say, close the borders, kick out all the illegal aliens. I mean, that is not a rational immigration policy. And of course, the Hispanic voters went for Obama by a huge margin. That's one thing. I think what helped Obama was, in the beginning, Mitt Romney, the more you get to know him, the more appealing a guy he is. I mean, whatever you can say about the flip-flopping or dissing the 47%, he's just a person with wonderful human attributes of generosity and loyalty and everything else. But the campaign started with a barrage of negative ads about how he's sending your jobs overseas, and he's a big capitalist, and then you couple that with the populist expressions by Obama. You know, now I think anybody who is advised by their political advisors that this is going to do it for you. I mean, what Obama did is well within the standards of our current politics, certainly. I mean, you do what you need to, you know, first you get elected and then you do right.
You're not suggesting that Obama had the black cat, not to be, no pun intended, and that Mitt Romney was this fine, upstanding guy in the campaign?
No.
Oh, okay. They're both scurrilous.
Of course not.
They're both scurrilous.
Of course not. I mean, people on their behalf do scurrilous things. And if you're looking for scurrilous and you want some scurrilous Republican stuff, a lot of the voter manipulations, you know, the fewer early voting days.
Do you think that
clamping down?
Do you think that backfired on them?
It might have. It might well have.
All of the efforts by the Republicans, and by the way, let me ask you this question. All these efforts by the Republicans to keep people from voting, and more people turned up. This was fast. You know, in 2004, Bush got more of the Mormon vote than Romney did?
Really?
Yes.
That's
more
surprising.
of the Romney vote.
That is surprising.
Yeah, I mean more of the Mormon vote than Romney
That
did.
is surprising.
But here we have.
But Romney did get a great big share of the evangelical vote. I
yeah,
just
he
heard
did.
that. He really had the lion's share of the white evangelical vote. Despite that, you remember they said at the beginning, oh, they don't like him and they don't think he's really a Christian. And
there was a problem with that, though. They didn't get the turnout that they thought they were going to get. I mean, of those that voted, they thought that they did well, but it was, I don't know how many millions that didn't vote.
Maybe they weren't. Yeah, maybe they just weren't.
The turnout was
cranked up
was less.
and energized.
But I want to ask you about the underpinnings of the Republican Party, and I think this was the soft part of the belly that nobody really appreciated. The public has seen now, for the last several years, that CEOs are making enormous multiples of what CEOs made a few years ago, where labor has basically stayed the same. They're seeing people that get an inside track on public offerings for stock and make millions and millions of dollars based on information from stockbrokers and having deals made. They've seen hedge fund operators. They've seen the Bernie Madoffs. They've seen people who've made so much money that don't appear to work. And then they have to listen to how they are the 47%. They're gold brickers. They're lazy. They're sitting on the porch drinking a beer. They're the problems with the country. Yet these people, this mass of people that came out, weren't all welfare workers voting for President Obama. I think the public's finally figured it out. There's been such an overreach and such avarice and such greed in corporate America that the average person said, yeah, you people have stolen enough. And here's the problem with it. They're viewed as the Republican Party. That's who the average person thinks is Republican Party. Not decent people. We all know them, hardworking small businessmen and stuff. The Republicans. Many people don't see the Republican Party with those people. They see the fat cats at the top who've taken all the cream off the crop. Okay, at the expense of the working people. That's my view about it.
I think those are some very good points. I mean, there is a bigger disparity between the people in the head office and the rest of the people, and bigger compared to other countries.
And much bigger than, say, 20 years ago.
Is it the government's job to look at that and regulate it? I do have a response to, look at some of the IPOs. Now, some of the sponsors of IPOs and the people who run hedge funds just have unimaginable wealth. But IPOs just did. If your stockbroker advises you to jump in an IPO, I would jump out the window.
Well,
that's always been my view, because a lot of those IPOs, remember Facebook and
I know,
went south immediately.
But I'm not talking about the average citizen on IPOs. I'm talking about
running the show.
when the brokers get on the phone and they've got a list of 8 or 9 big cat people that are going to have an inside track on the offering, and they make a bundle. Now, sure, people have lost money on IPOs, but my point was, by the way, did you see today, hedge fund guy arrested on an inside information deal, $275 million. Now, when the public starts reading things like that, they think, that's your Republican Party. The Republican Party doesn't look to them like the people Bill and I know that are business people or lawyers like Bill or other. I think many people like the Republican Party is just a bunch of fat cat white guys taking everything you can get your hands on. And I think that's a problem.
Good point. Yeah. There is something to it. It's not the whole story. That's kind of the Obama version of the fat cats. But there's definitely something. There's definitely something to it. I mean, the financial services industry is just rife with a lot of BS. The money made by the financial services industry is about equal to all the profits that the corporations make. They get all the money.
They get all the money.
Yeah.
And the public's not dumb. They understand when companies like AIG and the enormous amount of money that they've made get bailed out by the government, and then they have plants are shutting down in this country, and they see all of the other benefits that were derived from the government for many of these so-called Republican independent entrepreneurs that can't stand government.
Good points.
Like, wait, we're tired of it.
We have corporate welfare in this country, and that hasn't been addressed. I mean, they're talking about, and maybe it's because these people give so much money and they're such effective lobbyists, we've got corporate welfare. If you're really interested in balancing the budget, let's start with the corporate welfare. That's pretty easy. I mean, agriculture's doing great, and they're still passing out billions and billions to agriculture. We've got this sugar quota. I mean, we've got the ethanol mandate that apparently can't get changed. The ethanol mandate is a disaster. It doesn't help anybody but Archer Daniels Midland and some of the fat cats.
That's right.
And the corn people. We've got loads of corporate welfare. Let's stop that. Let's stop agricultural subsidies. We don't have plumber subsidies. We don't need them anymore. Let them compete. What's wrong with that?
I agree.
No, and the sugar quota. Every time you eat a cupcake, you pay a little bit extra to the sugar industry because they can lobby better and have better political connections. It's the only reason for it. And it really hurts. You know, a lot of sugar is grown in these really poor countries. It hurts them. All
right, I've got an irony for you. This is really cool. A guy wrote about it in the Washington Post this morning, but it had been written about before. And here's the irony. You remember when Romney said he was going to close the loopholes, right?
Right.
And nobody really knew which loopholes, but he hinted about some.
Yeah.
This is so interesting, Bill. One of the loopholes, one of the biggest loopholes, costs the most money is the deductibility of state income tax.
Yes.
Okay? Well, here, this is cool, right? You would think, right, that these fat cat benefits the Democrats would be up in arms against these fat cat benefits.
Because it's all the Democratic states.
It's New York and it's California. 50 million people, they're getting it.
New Jersey.
Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, and others are saying, well, no, we don't want to mess with that because here's the point. And this was the author's point, which I'm not claiming authorship on. He was saying this is the problem. It allows state governments to continue to raise income tax rates because they can flip around and deduct them. What's the effect? Huge benefits to New York, California, and some other states, and the other states pay for it. Great detriment to Florida because we don't have an income tax.
It is outrageous.
It's outrageous.
Yeah, we're going to get everybody else to pay our tax. So let's raise the tax. And of course,
that was I thought one of the coolest loopholes.
That is terrific.
That's putting
that's pretty good.
Our old state senator used to say, "Let's put the hay down where the goats can get it." That did it. Okay, Democrats.
And usually you can count on anything said by Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer.
Well, they are the ones that do not want to take the fat cat benefit that befalls their constituents.
Right.
It's like, wait, I thought you people were all for, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. That's what you claim you're doing all the time. Pretty interesting.
They don't do what's in the interest of the taxpayer.
Of course
not. They don't do what's in the interest of the country. This got passed around today. This doesn't come from me. And this is Warren Buffett, who's disappointed me lately by buddying up to Obama and getting benefits out of that for himself.
I think he's starting to read more and become more informed. But go ahead.
This is Warren
Well, before
Buffett.
you do that, it's time to take our break, isn't it? Is it time to take a break? Yeah, okay. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back, and Bill's going to talk about Warren Buffett. So stay with us. We'll be back here in just a minute.